Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Fantasy Show. I'm back again, and it's not Tinch and Byron. I told you he wouldn't be gone for long. Adam is back to join us. It's only only 2 weeks in, and he's already filling in for them already.
Yeah,
Glad to be back on the show.
didn't take long. Didn't take
No.
long, did it, for them to accidentally forget and go off and enjoy themselves doing something else? I mean, just unbelievable.
I mean, who puts music gigs and weddings and things like that in the American football season? It's just absolutely terrible. I don't know what people are playing at.
I know they are. I mean, pain in the arse is like just that's being nice. That's being nice, especially to you.
Well, you're welcome. I'm the superior leader, so it's allowed. Well, it's probably a good chance to get you on the show as well, because if we just quickly, briefly talk about the franchise league, you are the reigning champion
I
and
am.
currently sat at 2-0.
I
So,
am.
how are you feeling
It's
about your early doors season so far?
it's only downhill from here. It's I'm surprised, to be honest, that I am 2-0. I was not particularly happy with my draft. I think I told you and was quite obvious about that. I have to say, streaming the draft this year, I found very difficult to concentrate on my team compared to last year. And I think it was because Freddie was in the room with all of you. So there was lots of things going on. Whereas for last year, it was me and Freddie, and it was just quiet, and we were just doing it, and so it was a lot easier. Yeah, I found it really hard, and I think I probably made a few errors because of it, which is why I think I have been the most active person already. But then I was last year, wasn't I? So
Yeah, I mean, we usually, as the season peters out, you're always active in looking forward to trying to put a trade in, or you're always. I think you're one of these guys that really invest time into the sell high, buy low sort of mentality of fantasy. It's something that people never ever really talk about when they've got a good player, but they want to keep hold of him just in case. You're one of these guys that's like, I've had him at his highest peak. I think I can get great value for him and get two solid players that have got a better sort of matchup later on down the line. You're very invested heavily in that, and I'd say it's an area of fantasy that people overshadow and overlook, and I find it quite important to look at stuff like that.
well, that's how you win a league. I mean, it is. That is how you win a league. It's like it's all well and good keeping players, and like I mean, one piece of advice is always that you don't win your league at the draft. You just set yourself a base, and that's kind of what you have to carry on. So you start with that, and then you have to move. You have to move people, and you see. I personally, I think you see it very quickly in some players as well. You've had two games now. You've got to bear in mind, fantasy is not the same as the NFL, and when you look at things, you suddenly start going, yeah, don't feel happy about that, or that's not going to be great. Um, you know, trades are pretty few and far between in this league, and I think it's something that we all kind of. I think a lot of people, to a certain extent, that they're scared that they're going to get screwed over by someone, but also I think they're very highly invested by the draft pick. And I mean, I traded my first round pick. That was the thing. Is like I took Kamara. I think I was 13th in the draft. I took Kamara at the back of the first. I didn't like what I saw in the first week, and it wasn't because he was slightly injured. I don't believe that. I think it's from what I could see, Jameis Winston is going to be someone who's going to throw the ball a lot more. They're still going to use Taysom Hill in run plays, which is absolutely awful for Kamara. And so, and you see the sort of like the three-pronged attack as receivers as well that they have. suddenly that doesn't look like a great first round pick because of all of them things. So, it kind of makes you think, okay, well, move on. I think you have to move on. You really do. Otherwise, you won't go anywhere.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's something I've been looking at more this year that I've never really looked at. I mean, I think after week 1, I was looking at whether I could sell Najee Harris at quite a high rate, just because I was worried about that foot injury and it being aggravated, and it later down the line me being in a bit of a pickle. But it's just weighing up the risks, really. But yeah, I think buying high and selling low is definitely something that we're going to see a lot more in fantasy, and we're going to see a lot more of it online, of people giving advice in that area. But the main area that we always talk about is the waiver wire, and using that. As you said, you've already been quite active. I felt like if the first week you got the best pick off the waiver wire. I mentioned it to the lads. I said if he was free in anybody's league, jump on Jeff Wilson, and you were all over it straight away. I think this week as well, you picked up a guy that I had my eye on when he got signed to the practice squad, and I was an hour in. But last year I pulled the trigger too early on a couple of people like that, and it didn't work out for me. But I think Marlon Mack is definitely a great pickup there. They've lost another running back there at San Francisco as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a complete waste of time. Hopefully, it is a complete waste of time. It's a really weird pick to make in a way. The person who's picked him hopes that it's a waste of time picking him, but I kind of hope it is, because obviously that means that Jeff Wilson has stayed fit. So, but I mean, they're all like glass. I don't know what they're doing in the 49ers. Their running backs are just a nightmare. I mean, they train, don't they, with the little pockets of holes in the field. It's to toughen them up. And what they're doing is they're just injuring their players. It's a really odd thing to do. But yeah, I mean, I picked up Marlon Mack just purely as depth, put him on there. There's some players that I drafted later on in the draft. I made 3 changes actually this week, where just on the waiver wire. I picked up Marlon Mack, took out Rex Burkhead, who I picked up the week before, just because he looked like he was kind of like he was getting a few of the snaps. You didn't know how it was going to work with Dameon Pierce. It wasn't great at the start, but very quickly in the second week, you saw Dameon Pierce is becoming the guy there, which we kind of all thought it might be. It was more just whether Lovie Smith was going to not think it was more what it was. So that was why I picked Burkhead up in the first place. It didn't work, so we chuck him and we go and get Marlon Mack, sort of thing. Also, so like I bought in Hayden Hurst. I think he's looked decent. He's been one of the few for the Bengals who's actually looked okay. Gave up Valdez Scantling, who's done nothing. And it's like I drafted Valdez Scantling. He's done nothing in 2 games. Can he go and have a game and score a 60-yard touchdown? Absolutely. But am I ever going to have him in my team? No. So what's the point of keeping him, kind of thing? So that's why I got rid of him. And then finally, Alec Pearce. He's been out injured for the first 2 games. He's just been sitting on my bench, not really doing anything. And as we mentioned on the preview show in Jacksonville, yes, Christian Kirk's the main guy, but Zay Jones is picking up certainly some targets are going his way. It might be a complete waste of time. It might not. But the other thing is I also believe that picking up these guys isn't the worst thing in the world, because you can use them for trades. Yeah. They can be used as make weights. And I think that's something that, again, that's something that I do quite a lot. And in the Alvin Kamara trade, I got Tyreek Hill, but I gave up Alvin Kamara and Marvin Jones. I picked Marvin Jones up for nothing. I'm not going to play it. Not really. I mean, maybe if I'm desperate, but chances are I'm not going to play him. So, I mean, I'm giving out all the secrets, but
Wow, that's the trouble with this show. I said this before we started it. I was like, do I really want to be coming on every week and telling everybody who to sit and start and who to pick up off the waiver prior to me trying to get them as well? So it's a tough one to make. I'm going to, as you're the reigning champion, as you've been the most active on the waiver wire, I'm going to throw out some names to you that I believe are quite interesting, that are still on a lot of people's waivers that you can still pick up, and see whether you've got any value or whether you'd pick them up or whether you'd leave them on the waiver wires. And the first name I'm going to throw at you is Noah Brown from the Cowboys.
Yeah, now I did look at him. He was one that I looked at. It was very much between him and Zay Jones. I think Noah Brown is. I think he's going to be useful all the time that Cooper Rush is there. I know that he did a little bit with Dak Prescott, but that first week it wasn't great at all with the Cowboys. But he has, I can see that he might be worth looking at. I didn't go for him in the end. Like I say, I went for Zay Jones instead. I think you have to be, in order to play him though, you've got to be a bit worried and a bit short at wide receiver. I don't know if I would be playing him, but yeah, I mean, who have the Cowboys got this week?
They've got I want to say the Giants this week. They've got the
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, they've got the Giants. Yeah, so it's going to be a battle of the field goals, isn't it? Again, so
yeah, well, our defense looks to be the thing that's pulling the Giants through. So that's going to be a tough matchup for them on that side of the ball, and vice versa. So yeah, it might be a field goal off again. Next on my list for you to pick from, there's two running backs. There's the potential that James Conner is day by day. He is practicing. He's still questionable. Would you see any value in either Darrell Williams, who came in and took a lot of the red zone snaps, or do you see their running back number 2, Eno Benjamin, who looked good last year? We mentioned him prior to the season starting when we did that he had the potential to become valuable later on in the year. Do you think there's any value in him if you've got James Conner?
Yeah, I mean, I think there probably is. It's probably worth picking him up as a freebie, isn't it? I mean, out of the two, I'd go for Eno Benjamin, probably. I don't know how many leagues he's going to be free in. He might be. There might be. He might be
in virtually all leagues. He's definitely, he was available in ours, and we're a 14-man league. So
who picked him up in ours? I missed that.
Oh, that was me.
Oh, right.
Just for the sheer fact that obviously when we did the show, I really liked him last year, and I thought when he came in and supported after Chase Edmonds got injured and it was him and Connor, I felt like this guy could take over from Connor if Connor doesn't step up or he has an off season, which is why I really liked him. But having said that, Williams was the guy that got the red zone snaps after James Conner went off injured with his injury. So I ummed and ahed, but I preferred Eno Benjamin as a gamble because he is listed as running back 2. So
yeah, I think he's the better player all round, I must say. I think he's a good pickup. I mean, are you desperate for a running back, or is it just more of a bench? Just like you say, just to cover James Conner if he doesn't play. Is that the idea?
I had a space on my bench that was not really doing a lot, and I was worried with how serious James Conner's injury is. Leaves me with Najee Harris and Cordarrelle Patterson. So Cordarrelle Patterson struggled last week. Was great week 1. So I just wanted to make sure I got a bit more depth just in case, really, because I've got the wide receivers to fill that flex spot, which I've been playing 3 running backs of the last 2 weeks. So it was just more just in case. And if he does pop, then I've got him for the future. If I do like the look of him in maybe week 4, if it's happening.
Yeah, I think it's not a bad move.
I mean, the other names that I've seen that are still available on waiver wires, I'm just shocked at. So I don't even need to ask your advice on them. Jahan Dotson's still available in most leagues.
Yeah.
And that shocked me massively. I think he's one of the standout rookies so far. And all the others are gone. And Jacoby Myers is still available in a lot of leagues. Do you think there's any value in him? Do you think he is the wide receiver one at that team still?
Yeah, I think he's the wide receiver one. I don't know if there's much value in him just because of the team that he's on. They're not putting up a lot of points. They don't really look like they're going to put up a lot of points, to be honest. I mean, Mac Jones last year looked decent, but it doesn't really look like. I don't know. I kind of feel like the offense doesn't really know what it's trying to do, which is a bit of a weird thing to say, but it's like that's kind of how it feels. And so I'm not too sure. I think he's the definite number one, but I don't know if he's going to get you many points, and also I don't know if he's going to get you many touchdowns. He's a bit more of a slot guy, isn't he? That's the problem with him. So I think he's solid, but I don't think he's going to get you loads. One guy who is on our waiver wire still, who I was another one that I looked at, was Greg Dortch at Arizona. I think that's the one who, to me, has kind of shown that he's getting more involved in the offense quite quickly. He's he got a touchdown last week. They're still without Hopkins for another 4 weeks, I believe. Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously you've got Hollywood Brown there, but it didn't really feel like AJ Green was particularly highly targeted, and Dortch looked okay. I mean, I thought he looked all right. So I would probably have him relatively high of players to bring in. I nearly went for him, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be worried that I was stacking my team full of too many Arizona players if I added any more. So I'm going to steer away from them. So if you, unfortunately, the tragedy happened to Trey Lance, if you had him, which would be the quarterbacks that you'd be looking at to replace him off of the waiver wire? Would you go straight in at Jimmy G as the replacement, or would you be looking at one of those other names? I know on the show you talked about how well Joe Flacco played. He's going to be available. Jacoby Brissett's going to be available. Marcus Mariota is going to be available. Cooper Rush, did better at that team. Who would you be looking at as a savior if you were looking at changing your quarterback up a little bit?
So Joe Flacco obviously did quite well against the Browns, wasn't it? They played, did quite well. He's going up against the Bengals this week. I don't know if that's necessarily who I'd want to be going up against, because although their offense hasn't been great, their defense has kept the score down for the opposition, so it hasn't been mega bad. It's really difficult. I think of the ones that I can see that are on our waiver wire anyway, Marcus Mariota is the one that I sort of look at and sort of think that, I know they're away to Seattle, but Seattle didn't show a lot against the 49ers, and
they've lost their best player in the secondary as well, haven't they?
Yeah, and I just feel like not only does Mariota have the rushing, which is the cheat code of quarterbacks in fantasy, he can rush and get a touchdown in, which he did in the first game. So not only that, it feels like he's definitely got a bit of a rapport going with Drake London now, and that Kyle Pitts, who we didn't get any questions about, but I know is someone that a lot of people are asking different people about. It feels like he's being used a little bit as a decoy, which is a very expensive decoy.
Adam's gone. Are you? Well, it's just me. He was talking about. Hey, are you there? Are you good? Are you back? All right, I lost you completely. You were like a spinning circle.
So yeah, you do kind of worry about Kyle Pitts a little bit, but yeah, I think he's got a good rapport with Drake London, and he's always got a chance of rushing in a touchdown. I think that's a really big thing for a quarterback. So yeah, Mariota for me would be the one to go for.
Yeah, he briefly just mentioned Kyle Pitts there. He'd be a guy that I'd be looking at to buy low. I think people are sort of checking out on him, but I think I think he's going to pop. Again, he's one of those players I don't think you can turn bad overnight. So I think you could buy him low in a trade, and he might add big value for you later down the line. Yeah,
possibly. It's just a bit of a worry, I think, with the quarterback. Like I say, it seems to be very much Drake London is the first read, and then we just sort of like we panic and then we start rushing because we don't know what else to do. So yeah, that's the only problem.
So I'm going to move on to what causes everybody so much stress throughout the week. You've got your team, you picked your waivers, you've done your trades. You're now and ahhing who to pick. You briefly said you don't like the look of Joe Flacco's matchup against the Bengals, but he's on the waivers. So for the people that are in people's teams, is there any? We'll start with the quarterbacks. Is there anyone you're a must start or a must sit for this week?
I mean, Jalen Hurts, obviously, against anybody. You got to start Jalen Hurts, haven't you? Look, I mean, when it comes to must starts, I mean, it's kind of the obvious ones, isn't it? Really, I mean, there isn't anyone.
Well, I don't want any. Look, I said this to the boys last week, retention buyer, and I went, if you come up with and tell me a must start is Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, then we're not giving people advice there. I'm more looking at the likes of sort of. I know in our league we've got. I think it's Freddie. Freddie's got Joe Burrow on his bench. Do you think Joe Burrow is a must start against the Jets? Or would you?
Yeah. No, I think you have to start. I mean, he's playing against the Jets. They have the biggest problem is I don't know what the fixtures are, so I'm just having a look.
I can spoon feed you there.
There's no preparation on this show. What more do you want? So yeah, I mean, yes, I would. Joe Burrow against the Jets. I any quarterback against the Jets, really, you're probably starting. I mean, defensively, they're struggling, aren't they? They're not amazing. They managed to pull it out of the bag last week, but I mean, I wouldn't be too excited for them. So you want someone who's a little bit out there. So I do like Mariota against the Seahawks. I must say, I think that one is a bit out there. The only other one, I think Derek Carr. Is that allowed, or is that too obvious?
I think that's a guy that you'd, after the couple of first 2 weeks performances, you'd be umming and ahhing whether to start him or not, and I think that adds value to what you thought process.
The other one who I've had sitting on my bench since the draft, and is taking the mickey. He's scoring far too many points. Is Jared Goff. Now, they're away to the Vikings, so it's going to be a tough game for them. But I can't see them not putting points up like every week. Mm-hmm. So if they're scoring, if he's getting, say, like, I don't know, say like 250 yards and a touchdown or two, so he gets 2 touchdowns and 250 yards, which isn't out of the question. I think you're looking at, a decent streaming option every week. That guy. So, yeah, I mean, Derek Carr, I think, is the one I would say definitely. But yeah, Jared Goff, why not? I mean, he keeps putting points up.
I'm going to give you a name. You're going to tell me whether he's a sit or a start. He's currently leading the league in passing yards. His wide receivers are on fire. He had probably one of the standout performances of the weekend. Would you start Tua against the Buffalo Bills? Do you think he can continue it, or would you bench it, or would you just ride it out?
I wouldn't start him. No.
You'd look at alternatives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would. I mean, how many points was it? We said we did. Is it 17? They've given up in 2 games,
yeah.
And They've given up 17 points in 2 games. The Dolphins, I know this doesn't matter for Tua, but the Dolphins defense has struggled against quality offenses. So, I mean, in that respect, I can see that the Bills would get in front. Tua would start throwing it, hoping to come back, and I can see interceptions coming. That would be the concern for me in that game. So, no. I mean, it really depends who's available, doesn't it, and who you've got. But there's a part of me that would go Mariota over him.
Yeah, I mean, this is the debate that we need to have, and this is the tough conversations that we need to deliberate, because there's plenty of people out there that have Tua. You know, he's leading the league in yards, and you've seen what Tyreek and Waddle do. You've got to be having in your head going, what do I do with this guy? And I think sitting him against the Bills and bringing in someone else who's just got a better matchup would be the safer option.
Yeah, I think it makes the most sense. As I said, Mariota is kind of that. There is actually one other guy who I completely forgot, but he is on our waiver wire and he has got quite a favourable matchup, and he likes to rush, and that's Justin Fields.
Yeah, so I don't think he's available on everybody's. I think that, you know, he's just
no, but he's on ours, and like you say, we're a 14-team league, so he's going to be around for a few people. I mean, Justin Fields might. I mean, you're not going to get a lot of passing yards, but
he's got a decent matchup this week, though, hasn't he?
Yeah, the Texans at home. Yeah. So
I'm very surprised he's been dropped.
Yeah, you could almost see kind of like a potential, like what they did against the 49ers sort of thing, just maybe a bit drier. But
maybe it's because he only threw the ball 11 times, and that would concern an owner, that he's only thrown the ball 11 times, completing 7 of them, but, you know, only threw it 11 times.
No, I completely understand it. And that, like I say, there's others that I'd rather go for, but I do, you know, it wouldn't be the worst one in the world. But yeah, I wouldn't be playing Tua this week. I think you'd put him on the bench, and you'll probably enjoy the rest of the season with him.
Definitely, yeah. I think it is just this week. It's matchup based, isn't it, rather than player based.
So whoever plays the Bills, that's what it's based on.
That's our advice every week, is it? I'm sure we'll find some holes. Like as we get a bit more data and stats, we'll be going, oh yeah, the Bills can't defend the tight end. It's the only position they can't. So whoever, there'll be stuff like that. But as a starter, this is where we're at. So we move on to the running backs. Anyone you really like as a starter this week?
Running backs that I like. I think Joe Mixon is an obvious one, but you're going to want someone a little bit out there.
I'll give you a name if you want. I don't mind.
Yeah, go on.
It's a guy I spoke on the show about last week. I think he's still not being given the recognition despite having 2 great weeks. Clyde Edwards,
yeah, I did look. I just saw that they're playing the Colts, and the Colts have, obviously not started well. So yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be an interesting one. I think if Alvin Kamara is still out, then Mark Ingram.
Yeah, he played well.
I thought he played all right. They're playing against the Panthers. The Panthers really struggled against the run when they played against the Giants. So I think that is definitely one that you can look out for. And then again, just because they're playing the Seahawks, Patterson at the Falcons. I think Patterson at the Falcons would be a good shout. He's someone a little bit different. There's a few. There are. I mean, like obviously, there's a lot of obvious ones, but there are a few that you could go for there.
Now,
I hate to say it, but before you go on to wide receivers, I'll just say Drake London now. You know,
I'm not moving on yet. You're jumping the gun. I play a new alternative version of fantasy football that's a buy-in with Bet365 Fantasy Sports. And it runs the same as a little bit like you get a certain amount of money and you have to pick your positions based on the value of the players. You get two free transfers every week. And I brought in a cheaper running back into my team this week because I think he's a must start. I brought in David Montgomery this week into my team against the Texans.
So against the Texans,
I like him. I think he's a good, strong running back, and they run the ball a lot. They're a run-heavy team.
Yeah, so they are a run-heavy team. The thing that concerns me about Montgomery is that it's the amount of he needs the reps. He needs to see the ball a lot. He can't. He's never going to be that guy who, you know, he's like 3 yards a carry. He's not like 6. You just don't get that with him. So he needs to see the ball a lot. Now, the problem is most weeks, maybe not this week actually, but most weeks the problem is that they just don't get enough. That they're getting too far behind too quickly. So the run game kind of gets taken out. But against the Texans,
he put up great numbers against the Packers.
Yeah, he did okay. It's like he's just not my kind of running back. That's the problem. I just think normally he needs a lot of. I mean, anyone who's got him is going to start him because he was drafted in the 4th round, I think, in most leagues. So yeah, I mean, most teams are gonna go for him. And like you say, it is the Texans, so it's not that hard.
And my questionable guy for you for whether you'd risk starting him is Travis Etienne. Are you out on him and riding James Robinson, or do you think there's any value in starting Travis Etienne against the Chargers as well?
Yeah, so they're against a good defense. Chargers defense has looked decent this year. They really struggled against the run last year, but they've definitely improved on that. I think he kind of I don't know. I think Robinson is the guy, isn't he? It seems like that's what's happened.
Himself again, you know.
Yeah, he looks good, Robinson. He really does, and so I think because of that, I probably wouldn't be starting ETN this week. I think you'd have better options, but then you know the team that drafted him would have drafted him quite high, so if they haven't, they might not have the options for it. But I wouldn't be comfortable starting him. Let's put it that way.
Definitely be a sit for me this week. I think Robinson's having to every season prove himself that he's number one, and he does it every time. And we're still having this conversation, but yeah, I'm worried about Etienne's value going forward as well. He's not done anything wrong. Just James Robinson's playing some good ball at the moment. So on to wide receivers. Drake London must start. Okay, yeah, he is. Okay, that's your value of that. Is there anybody else you're looking at for this week, or is that your?
I mean, I feel that Drake London is it feels like a bit of an obvious one. Chris Olave against the Panthers, I think is a good shout. Who else have we got? I mean, is Amon-Ra St. Brown too obvious now? It kind of feels a bit obvious, doesn't it?
You know, he's now in the conversation of top 5 wide receiver in the league. I'm hearing. So,
is he?
Is he actually? We spoke about it in the show, didn't we? About the fact that he's pretty good automatic for a touchdown every single week. I think they're saying hasn't he scored 7 touchdowns in the last 7 games?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
He's joint record with a player from like the 80s or something, isn't it?
Yeah, he's currently number 2. So yeah, he's pretty good. Yeah, so maybe he's a bit too obvious. Christian Kirk. I know the Chargers are a good defense, but they do give up some points. But away to the Chargers, yeah, it's a tough game. I like Drake London. I think he's good. I think Chris Olave has got a good shout this week. To be honest, I think all of the Saints wide receivers have got a good shout this week. One that you might see come through this week, Hunter Renfrow. They are away to the Titans. Obviously, a lot of the ball is going to Devontae Adams.
I
But
thought you forgot his name then.
yeah.
It's just hard for you to say. It's just hard for you to admit that he's gone, isn't it?
It's gone. Yeah, it's Devontae Adams. But yeah, maybe Hunter Renfrow at a push might be someone. And we mentioned him earlier. Possibly Jacoby Myers. The Patriots, they're at home. They've got the Ravens. It's going to be a tough game against the Ravens. But, the Dolphins put up 41 points against them. So even if they can put up 21 points, there's a chance that some of that's going to come through Myers. So, yeah. But, Drake London's really my.
Now, my question mark for the wide receivers. There's a wide receiver that we spoke about that we thought was going to have a bit of a bigger season this year than what he has done so far. And it's Adam Thielen. He's going against the Lions. Would you start him still? Would you still be on that train? Because he has struggled through the first 2 weeks. And we've been talking about him being a safe bet for them.
Yeah, it's... I hate to say it, but I feel like you're starting to see the older receivers starting to wane a little bit and go. It's a shame because he was such a good receiver, but he does seem to have dropped off significantly. I'm a little surprised. I think it might be more because they had such a tough matchup away at the Eagles. I think it was a tough game for them, and it was prime time, and we all know how well Kirk Cousins does in prime time. So I don't think that helped. Against the Packers, the problem is that we just left Justin Jefferson open. So obviously Kirk Cousins is going to go there. I think in this particular one, you've got the Lions. The thing with the Lions is, although they seem like a good attacking outfit, they seem to have struggled defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be against putting him in the flex if you didn't have any other options. But if you had, obviously if you got better options, then pick someone else. But I just kind of feel like I think he's starting to drop, and so the suggestion I would go with is almost like if you've got a better option, keep him on your bench, and if he has a good game, try and trade him. Yeah, that's what I would probably look at, because this is the type of game he might have a good game.
Definitely. Now, yet again, we were semi-popular last week with questions. With week 1, it's week 2. Apparently, we've got loads of questions.
We got more.
Let's start plowing through them.
Cool. Right. So you got to start 2 of these players. This has come from FFB Elite. You got to start 2 players, standard league. You can have Josh Jacobs at the Titans, AJ Dillon at Tampa Bay, your boy Garrett Wilson at Cincinnati, or Amari Cooper against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm all in on Garrett Wilson. Think he's a must start this week. Don't see any issues there. And I'm in on AJ Dillon as well. I think
really.
I think every week I personally think he has the opportunity to get in the end zone every single week. I think they're using Adams a lot more in the receiving game, and then giving him a break and using Dillon for the running. So I'm I mean, I'm just worried about Josh Jacobs. I'm not sure he's good every single week. Whereas Thielen, I think it will put in the points up. He'll probably match Jacobs' points even with less touches. Even if he just needs to get in the end zone, which is something they don't necessarily use Josh Jacobs a lot for the goal line. So, because he's a smaller guy. So yeah, him and Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me about Thielen this week is that we are away to Tampa, and historically that's been horrific. And I know they've got lots of injuries, but even still, it's been pretty bad. So, but then maybe you're seeing a different Packers side, so maybe the run game is the way forward, and that's the way. But definitely Garrett Wilson, though. I think definitely Garrett Wilson would start. Right, Randolfo has asked us, should I take Dobbins off of IR? Is the first part of the question.
Well, you don't get to choose when he comes off of IR.
Well, I think what
he's
he
off
means.
Of IR now.
You can. I think he still is technically, isn't he?
No,
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure Nathan's got him, and I'm pretty sure Nathan's put him in his team, so he must be off IR.
Okay, right. So we'll say that he's
questionable. He's off of IR. He's questionable.
Well, he's given me a photo shot. He's shown me his team.
And just to report for him, if he needs the knowledge, full practice on Wednesday.
Right. So
he's in full practice. He wasn't injured for the first 2 weeks. I think they were just holding him back and resting him still.
Yeah.
So now he's at full practice. I would probably look at starting him.
Right. Okay. So if that's the case, he has to put him onto his bench or just put him in the team. So he's got to take someone out. So these are the options to take. It's like, so should I take him off? Who should I drop? So his choices are Breece Hall, Darrell Henderson, and Damian Harris at running back. Wide receiver, he's got Renfro, Shepard, and DJ Chark. And then tight end is Kyle Pitts. So that's his bench. So he's got to lose one of them.
Why is his bench?
It's a crazy team.
Is he in a 6-man league? DJ Chark, he's not played well. He's not getting targeted a lot. And I think there's more value in running backs than wide receivers, especially if Dobbins is going to lead that backfield, because it hasn't had a leader yet there. So if Dobbins is going to be the leader, I said this last week when I thought he could be back, then I think he holds more value than DJ Chark's had, because they're distributing the ball out quite a bit there. So he's not the main guy. Dobbins will be the main guy, and Dobbins is good at catching as well. So
yeah, so you'd bring Dobbins back in. I would probably keep Chark. I know he's not the main guy, but he does have Sterling Shepard on his bench. And I mean, your team is just a field goal kicking team. It's unbelievable. What's going on?
Do throw. It's Sterling Shepard seems to be the guy at the moment.
Yeah, I know, but it's so few and far between. It just doesn't seem to be happening that much. And I just feel like Detroit seemed to be
scored more than DJ Chark this season.
He probably, well, yes, because he had one massive touchdown, didn't he? So yeah, but I just feel that I think that for me, I'd stick with Chark just because he's on an offense that is more likely to score more points. So that is definitely one. Joel Palladini has asked, benching Aaron Rodgers for my recent waiver ad this week, Jared Goff. Am I crazy?
Well, you've already confirmed no. You really like Jared Goff for a start. Who's you're playing?
So Aaron Rodgers is playing Tampa Bay, and Jared Goff is so they're both away, and Jared Goff is playing the Vikings.
Well, you've already said that they're a bit of a bogey team for Aaron Rodgers, haven't you?
That stadium, he's been awful in that stadium for years.
And we've just mentioned we believe he's going to be handing the ball off to both of his running backs a lot. So I think I think that's sensible. I like Jared Goff in that. I think Roger. I think didn't one of our lads Umanara trade in Rodgers already this season in our league?
Byron, isn't it?
I think he says he's quite happy to look at trading him. Because I think it's surely because he doesn't trust those wide receivers. He's not throwing it to them, and they are literally giving the ball to the running backs. So, yeah, we know Jared Goff's going to throw. We know that he likes to play action. There's always that big score. So, yeah, I think that's not crazy.
No, I agree. I think it's definitely the way forward this week. At CB Jacob 42, start, bench in his flex position. We've kind of gone down this already a little bit. Allen Robinson or Adam Thielen?
Robinson.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that one. Chad W. Grenoble has asked, should he stay with Ezekiel Elliott as his running back 2? Now, he has got... Let's have a look.
I think a lot of people are saying that Pollard's the guy now, and I think Pollard's more of a... talking about a must start for this week, isn't he?
So his alternatives are Damien Harris and Tyler Algier. So if you take Zeke out, you've got to put one of them 2 in. Unfortunately, he had Elijah Mitchell, who's gone on IR, and he's got Brian Robinson. So it's not been a great start. Sorry?
Stick with Zeke.
Stick with Zeke. Yeah. I think that Zeke in that respect is, I mean, because Harris got injured, didn't he, at the end of the game? And I know he's all right, but
he's got the same issue. Whereas Harris is the number 1 guy. He's good enough. He's great. But he's sharing the ball a lot more with Ramondre Stevenson. And you've got the same issue at the Cowboys with Zeke and Pollard. But Zeke's still always going to be the first go-to guy, isn't he? So I'd probably stick with him for the time being.
He's also asked, should he put Curtis Samuel in his flex, which I'm a little bit surprised that he's asked this, because he's got Rashad Bateman currently in his flex. He's also got...
They're playing
Tyler
each other, aren't they?
Sorry?
They're playing each other, aren't they?
Yeah. No. Washington are playing Philadelphia.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, he's got Rashad Bateman that he can have, Tyler Lockett, Damien Harris, Jahan Dotson, Jeff Wilson, and Gerald Everett and Curtis Samuel. So, I mean, for me,
Bateman,
I think I'd be looking at Bateman. Yeah, I just think he looks the guy, doesn't he? And the other thing is Lamar Jackson he seems to have changed a little bit. It's like, rather than just constantly running, he seems more than happy to be throwing that ball around. So
throwing it well. And we spoke on the show about how well James Bradbury and Darius Slay are both playing at the Eagles. So Curtis Samuel is going to get marked. Plus, I think I like Bateman more. Bateman is wide receiver 1. Curtis Samuel is a check down guy, isn't he? Really?
Well, he's wide receiver 3 as well now, isn't he? Really? Yeah. I mean, I would say Dotson's ahead of him, and obviously McLaurin is. So yeah. Right. Adam Hulse has asked, is it time to cut Darnell Mooney?
No. Well, cut him. He's definitely worth stashing for a little bit, isn't he?
Is he? I mean, what's he actually done?
Nothing. Literally nothing. We spoke about this 5 minutes ago. He threw the ball 11 times. Nothing.
Yeah, but he must have done something, surely.
Nothing. Because
has he not had a catch?
Equanimeous St. Brown was the guy in week 1, wasn't he? So
yeah, but he must have thrown the ball. Has he not thrown the ball to him at all?
I don't know. He's thrown the ball twice to Cole Kmet, and Cole Kmet hasn't caught either of them.
He's had 5 targets, 2 receptions, 4 yards. Is it
Nothing.
time to cut Darnell Mooney? It sounds like it's time to cut Darnell Mooney.
It's one of them where if you just got rid of him and it did start to work, you'd kick yourself. And do you think you're particularly getting anyone you know is going to add definitely day one more value on your bench as well? Like
I don't know. That's not good. 2 receptions, 5 targets, 4 yards. That's currently ranked 136 in the list of wide receivers.
I mean, if it was our league and you were asking that question, you are looking at Devontae Parker, Robbie Anderson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, KJ Osborne, Josh Reynolds, Sammy Watkins. They're the replacements that are on there. Do you think they add more confidence value than Mooney?
I think after the 2 weeks, yeah.
Neither of them have.
I think Robbie Anderson. I think Baker Mayfield is definitely. It feels to me that Anderson is the guy he looks to first, rather than DJ Moore. I think Robbie Anderson, I would look at. Not Parker. Who else was there?
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
No.
KJ Osborne, Josh Reynolds, Sammy Watkins.
No.
Equally, you've already mentioned it. You go even further down the list and you get Greg Dortch.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I think maybe you would leave him on your bench for a little bit longer and hope.
It's been 2 weeks. I'd keep him around a little bit longer. I think there's a lot of hype about him still. I think he might have just struggled through the first 2 weeks. Week 1, we always say it's week 1. Week 2, they went heavily on the run game. So let's not rule him out yet, just in case.
Yeah, I do always think that. I think once you get past 3 weeks, I think that's the point when you suddenly start going, the patterns are showing. And if he's still not getting any, they're playing the Texans. If he doesn't get anything against the Texans, then
maybe.
Right, so Oscar H has come out and asked us, do you think that Waddle will have success versus the Bills?
Well, we said sit Tua, but you know what? He's going to have to throw the ball, and someone's going to catch it. And I think Waddle, for me, is still the guy. Tyreek Hill's a downfield threat, isn't he, or a dump off to the side and let him use his legs. I still think Waddle's still the more receiver in the middle of the field that's going to get the ball if those downfield options aren't available. So him catching the ball alone is probably is worth it. Equally, who would you have more confidence on your bench than him? I'd still be confident in him putting a decent score up.
Yeah, so if you look at his bench, he's got Antonio Gibson on the bench, Dameon Pierce, Chris Olave, Noah Brown. There's good players there, but I wouldn't say that you would replace them for Waddle. I'd keep Waddle. And the other question that he asked was Najee tonight versus the Browns. What an exciting Thursday night matchup that's going to be.
I think it will. That's always an exciting game, regardless of the caliber of player that's playing.
It might be exciting because the chances of having a punch up are pretty high. But when it comes to actually exciting plays, I'm not sure there's going to be much there.
Yeah, for me, it's one of those games where it's such a big rivalry that you get the players step up more. So I think it could be a decent shootout game. You could see better from both teams. I definitely start Najee. I think he's a start against everyone.
You would. You've got him in your team.
Yeah, but equally, what he did last year. I don't think there's any team where his skill set particularly deplete, because he's good catching and he's great running hard down at the players, and he's in for a good sort of 90% of the snaps. So I think there's always value in against whoever he comes up, and I don't think the Browns are the Bills, which we said drop everyone against the Bills. So I think there's definitely a chance of him still being highly valuable. And who were you putting in instead of him?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And finally, from Texie Bay, start bench in his flex spot, Cortland Sutton or Brandon Cooks. Now, Brandon Cooks is playing against the Bears. Cortland Sutton is playing on Sunday night, isn't it? So, yeah, Sunday night football against home to the the 49ers. No, he plays for the Denver Broncos. He's at home to the 49ers.
Yeah, and we mocked Freddie, just for picking him up, just for the fun of it. But he's, I think he's had 2 consistent weeks. I think Cortland Sutton is playing well. Are you worried about the matchup? Are you thinking that San Francisco is probably just a tough matchup to go against, or?
Yeah, I mean, it is a tough one, isn't it? Really, I mean, the 49ers defense is good. It always has been. So I think because of that, it is difficult. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet.
I thought he scored one last week. Did he not score one last week? I thought he scored one last week.
No. So he hasn't got a touchdown yet, Cortland Sutton, but he's 11 receptions, 194 yards in 2 weeks. So he's certainly getting the yardage. Also, Jerry Jeudy is still day to day, so we don't know if he's definitely going to be playing or not. So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's a really tough one because Brandon Cook is always likely to just go off kind of thing. It's like he hasn't had a touchdown yet either, and he's 11 for 136. So,
well, the difference is Russell Wilson's thrown the ball to one, and Davis Mills has thrown to the other. And I think I'd have more faith in Russell Wilson stepping up a bit more than what we've seen from the first 2 weeks, because they've got to make changes drastically than I would out of Mills. So I'd go with Sutton, I think.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think Sutton's definitely the way forward in that one. But I've always liked Cooks. I think he's a good receiver, but very underrated. But I think Sutton's the one for that one.
Is that all the questions?
That is it. That was the last one.
Well, I spoke to you before you came on and said you got a free half an hour for me to do the fantasy show, which I'm keeping shorter this year to keep people more engaged. And here we are, an hour in. So
only you could complain about getting questions from people.
I'm not blaming that. It's not the questions. The questions, I probably should have started with the questions. As a note for next week, start with the questions. People will tune in and get their answer, rather than us waffling on about our thoughts of start and sit and won waivers and things like that. So before I go, Adam, we've had virtually no chat about our league, which we don't mind this season. But you're playing an 0-2 team. You're 2-0. You predicted a loss currently. Are you winning this week or not?
I think it's going to be very close. That 0-2 team is not an 0-2 team. He's been very unlucky with who he's played. I think Tinge has got a decent lineup there. He's got one of the best running backs in the league.
Trade for him, didn't you?
I tried to trade for him. He wouldn't play ball. He would have been better off if he had accepted the trade. But, this is the problem with people worrying too much about their draft picks. I think it's going to be very tough. I'm always confident that I'll get a win. And I think a lot of it will depend on if Jerry Jeudy's playing, to be honest. I think that's going to be the one. I was very surprised last week that I managed to win. But I literally had every player apart from Jerry Jeudy just kind of went off last week. They really did. And but yeah, I feel that I've got a decent team, and I've got Pat Frymouth, so hopefully a touchdown tonight will be lovely. And hopefully Deontay Johnson does not get a touchdown tonight. And that will be even better if both happen. But he's got a good team, so I think it'll be close.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be a good game. I've just looked at his team and I agree. I think he's he's definitely not got an 0-2 team in anybody else's league, I think, either. So, and we're 14, as we've said. So, yeah, best of luck to everybody else playing in their fantasy. Hopefully, our advice has helped you. Hopefully, our reigning champion has steered you in the right direction, and you've learned something tonight from us. But yeah, till Sunday, again, tune in for me and Adam going over the preview show of all of it. There'll be betting tips, as I said, on Tuesday. One load of people, load of money on last show. So fingers crossed they can continue that. But best of luck in your fantasy week this week, and best of luck to your teams. But till then, thank you for joining. See you next week.